up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. After a Chinese influencer known as Yaya left Taiwan on Tuesday night over controversial videos, the National Immigration Agency says 2 more Chinese influencers will also have to leave Taiwan before next Monday. Cadence Quaranta reports.
With the departure of Chinese influencer Yaya just hours before her deportation deadline, public attention is now shifting to 2 other Chinese influencers who are facing the same fate. Taiwan's immigration officials have told TaiwanPlus that the 2 influencers will need to leave Taiwan before March 31st. If they don't, they will be deported forcibly. All 3 of these Chinese influencers had their marriage-based residency permits revoked earlier this month after immigration officials found their videos on social media to be advocating the unification of Taiwan and China by force. By doing so, officials say they violated regulations governing Chinese citizens living in Taiwan because they threatened the country's national security and social stability. After Yaya's departure, the National Immigration Agency put out a statement, once again stressing that public remarks that advocate unification by force or destroying Taiwan's sovereignty are outside the boundaries of freedom of speech. As for other similar cases, the agency said it would continue investigating to show its commitment to safeguarding national security and social stability. They said there's no room for compromise when it comes to safeguarding the country's sovereignty. Currently, there are around 300,000 Chinese spouses living in Taiwan. To avoid stigma, the Mainland Affairs Council, which manages relations with China, is urging people not to target all Chinese spouses just because of these few recent incidents. In a statement, it emphasized that the majority of Chinese spouses love Taiwan and urged all Taiwanese people to continue welcoming Chinese spouses into our society with open arms. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Taiwan Strait, China's Taiwan Affairs Office put out a new message, asking people who suffer from, quote, suppression from the DPP authorities to contact them, or to report any individuals who are pro-Taiwanese independence. China announced new guidelines last year that allow it to try and punish anyone they deem a Taiwan independence separatist. All of this comes as Taipei is stepping up its efforts to combat what they say is growing Chinese espionage and infiltration within Taiwan. Devin Tsai and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Freedom of speech in Taiwan has been on a slippery slope since President Lai Ching-te took office, according to a group of scholars. 75 scholars have signed an open letter raising concerns that under President Lai, there has been less room for differing opinions. They point to the case of Chinese influencer Yaya, who left Taiwan on Tuesday night after her residency permit was revoked over social media videos seen as calling for military unification of Taiwan and China. In response, the presidential office says Lai respects freedom of speech for people with opposing views, but promoting an invasion of Taiwan crosses the line. Taiwan's recall petition saga continues as prosecutors raid offices and question several officials from the Hualien County government on Taiwan's east coast. They're looking into accusations that the officials violated privacy protections of local residents who signed a recall petition against their legislator, Fu Kunxi. Chris Gorin brings us more.
It's been a long night for Ming Lianzhen. The Hualien County official had his office raided by prosecutors, and he, along with several others, spent the day answering questions about whether they violated the privacy rights of local voters. Imagine you're upset with your local legislator and you sign a petition to recall them. Then a short time later, someone claiming to be a government inspector arrives at your door, asking you about the petition and your identity. Well, that's exactly what some Hualien petitioners say happened to them, and it's the cause of the recent raids. The petitions are for the recall of Hualien legislator and opposition KMT caucus whip Fu Kunxi. Known as the King of Hualien, Fu is a controversial and influential politician who once served prison time for financial crimes. Fu's home property was also raided earlier this month as part of a separate campaign finance investigation. He says it's all part of a long-running effort by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party to take him down.
上一次是收您的官邸旁边，这一次收到县府。一切依法行政啊。会不会觉得他们在想要助攻大罢免这一波这样？剧本不是他们都写好了吗？
Hualien County officials have defended their inspections of petitioners, saying they didn't break any laws or regulations.
依法行政进行相关查核， 建议中央选委会能够开设专门的讲习与教育训练，明确指导受托机关查对范围，以提升作业标准与一致性。
A spokesperson for the Fuquenqi recall effort, however, has applauded the raid.
其实蛮多疑点跟一些状况需要做厘清啦，是不是有恶意查水表？我们相信今天检调搜索调查之后我相信很快会给花莲公民一个交代。
The raids are just the latest in the growing controversy over recall drives across the country that have led to investigations, lawsuits, and political outrage on all sides. And with yet another legal action, which is sure to be met with countersuits, it seems the dispute won't be ending anytime soon. Chris Ma and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
A new U.S. intelligence assessment says China will continue to apply strong coercive tactics against Taiwan this year. The report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence says China will use both military and economic pressure against Taiwan to further its goal of unification. The annual assessment was released ahead of a Senate intelligence hearing on Tuesday. The report also says China's military is making steady but uneven progress in its ability to take Taiwan by force. Taiwan has unveiled its first domestically made sea drone, and the military is now looking to use it for operations in the Taiwan Strait. Jaime Okan brings us more.
This is the Endeavour Manta, Taiwan's newest unmanned surface vehicle, or a sea drone. The ship can communicate with troops on the ground, fire torpedoes, all without the need of a captain or a crew.
我们的摇导系统是自行研发，不会受制于别人。自行研发可以自行的扩展它的功能。
Taiwan's defense ministry says it's now assessing how advanced this new technology is and whether it can be used by Taiwan's military.
目前都在研议中。那未来的建军备战主轴就是以科技取代人力，火力取代的传统兵力这个部分我们会纳到我们国军未来建军发展的主轴。
This push for unmanned systems is part of Taiwan's drone strategy, which aims to develop and produce thousands of different kinds of systems. That includes drones that fit in backpacks, some that can take off vertically, and now some that can operate in the ocean. Officials say the move toward drones is motivated by what they've seen in modern warfare.
乌克兰呢，他利用他的无人船去攻击俄罗斯的黑海舰队，他的马克洛夫海军上将号可以把它破坏掉。
Last year, Ukraine used a similar drone to attack a different Russian naval ship, and given threats from China, Taiwan is looking at lessons from the war in Ukraine. While the Taiwan Strait has some of the roughest waters in the world, this sea drone is tailor-made for the region.
这么小的船一般是不太能够在水面耐这么大的浪即便它都做成水逆的状况，所以变成三体船之后，他们可以比较有效的耐浪。
Officials from the U.S. have encouraged Taiwan to turn the Strait into a hellscape if China decides to attack, not only protecting the lives of its soldiers, but providing an effective deterrent. And with this new sea drone, Taiwan appears to be taking another step in that direction. Fu Huahong and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. has added dozens of Chinese companies to its export control list. 6 subsidiaries of China's cloud computing company Inspur Group, including one based in Taiwan, are among those now blacklisted. The U.S. Commerce Department sanctioned these entities for their role in supporting China's military. The department also imposed export controls on dozens of other Chinese entities over military ties. The move is part of U.S. efforts to curb China's development of advanced technology and military capabilities. A possible breakthrough in the war in Ukraine. The U.S. has struck deals with Russia and Ukraine for a limited ceasefire, but it's unclear when it might take effect. Tiffany Wong has more.
A tentative deal for a partial ceasefire in Russia's war on Ukraine. Washington announcing 2 separate agreements with Ukraine and Russia to end fighting in the Black Sea.
We're in deep discussions with Russia and Ukraine, and I would say it's going well.
The U.S. giving in to Russian demands to lift sanctions on food and fertilizer exports, the first major removal of sanctions since the war began in 2022. with Kyiv and Moscow agreeing to halt strikes on energy facilities on both sides, a major step toward de-escalation. Meanwhile, the U.S. is promising to help Ukraine with prisoner exchanges in return for the end of, quote, the use of force in the Black Sea. But the details of the deal are still unclear.
Зараз американська сторона запропонувала нашій стороні одразу велику угоду. Їх бачення. Деталей у мене ще немає.
But with earlier ceasefire talks falling apart and no telling when fighting in the Black Sea will stop, Ukrainian residents in the port city of Odessa are not optimistic that peace can last.
Вони ніколи не виконують свої слова. І ці всі домовленості не будуть на користь України.
Putin, and not only Putin, everyone in his government, they are terrorists. That's impossible, completely impossible to believe that this time they indeed will do that they promised.
As the U.S. plays peacemaker, they'll need Ukraine and Russia to uphold their end of the deal to avoid going back to the drawing board. Howard Zhang and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Wildfires continue to blaze across South Korea. At least 19 people have died and historic temple buildings have been destroyed in what officials are describing as the worst fires in the country's history. Reese Ayers reports.
Throughout the night, wildfires in South Korea consume buildings and tear through mountainsides, destroying without discrimination. In the light of day, the razed remains of homes and temples revealed, as fire crews work to contain the still raging infernos. Amid the destruction, the Unramsa Temple, a treasured religious site with over 1,000 years of history.
굉장히 긴박했고 처음에는 이제 불이 붙을 거란 생각도 못 했고 이게 저 산에서 불이 붙어 갖고 올라와 가지고 불바다가 되는 거는 채 30분이 안 걸렸어요.
At least 19 people have died and 27,000 more are displaced after more than a dozen fires broke out in the country's southeast over the weekend. Among the dead, a helicopter pilot whose aircraft crashed trying to put out the flames. South Korea is calling it the worst wildfires on record.
이처럼 역대 최악의 산불에 맞서 우리가 동원할 수 있는 모든 인력과 장비로 맞서고 있으나 상황은 심상치 않습니다.
2024 was South Korea's hottest year on record. Combined with unusually dry weather conditions, the country's southern region is facing more than double the number of fires compared with last year. Now, as the flames continue to spread, threatening more lives and historical sites, acting President Han Duck-soo says the country is hoping desperately for rain. As even after all available rescue workers have been deployed, the fires rage on. Scott Huang and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
Almost 6,000 people have been evacuated as a wildfire on Japan's southern island of Shikoku entered its fourth day. The fire has burned more than 300 hectares of land, and firefighters are still struggling to bring the blaze under control from the ground and air. A separate wildfire that also started Sunday in southwestern Japan has seen some 2,000 residents evacuated. A third wildfire broke out on Tuesday on the southwestern island of Kyushu. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, take a look at these cherry blossoms in Tokyo, where tourists and residents alike are taking in the colorful trees. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.